Morning everyone. So it's Sunday and I'm going to stay fairly close to home today. I'm going to stay on these little residential roads because they're a sight quieter than being out on canal towpaths and round parks where all the runners and riders are going for their morning exercise. So bear with me just for today. The scenery will be a little bit less than what it normally is, but I'll still show you where I'm going. So Gary sent me an email, and in his email he explained that he's planning to do a tour across some of the highlands of Scotland, and he's looking forward to doing some wild camping, which is perfectly legal in Scotland. You can pretty much camp anywhere you like in the wilds of Scotland. But he's also got an e-assist on his trike, and he's concerned about, will it restrict him in where he can go and what he can do, because of obviously having to charge up those batteries whilst he's touring. On the opposite side of that coin, Gary's also concerned that if he tours without the e-assist, will he be able to make it up some of those hills and mountains that are going to make up that 15,000 feet of climbing that he's got to do. I was really glad that Gary sent me that email, because it reminded me of the decision that I had to make when I was planning my European tour for this year that I finally couldn't go on because of the knockdown. So as you're aware, I have the option of fitting the FNEO drive on my trike, removing the e-assist completely, fitting the FNEO drive and touring without electrical assist. So the tour that I had planned would have finished earlier on this week. On Wednesday I would have been back home had it all gone to plan. My route was to take me into Europe across 6 different countries and finishing up on the French-Swiss border near to the airport at Bâle. Now my route finished there because originally I thought to myself, I'll go without the e-assist, I'll put the FNEO drive back on the front of the trike, go without the e-assist, and then I can fly back to Britain from that airport. Now this was all planned out before I hurt my back during the winter and was off the trike, and obviously as I got nearer to the setting off on the touring date in the spring, I became concerned, would I actually have the strength and the stamina to complete the route without the e-assist? So the obvious concern is, if you're then travelling with the e-assist, I can't then fly back from that airport in Bâle, and if Gary's travelling with his e-assist, he's got the additional problem of having to charge the batteries up when he's in the wilderness. Now I have to say my route that I'd chosen to go through Europe would have by no means taken me into any wilderness, and I'm confident that I would have been able to charge up those batteries at the end of each day either by stopping in campsites or going to hotels. That wouldn't have been a concern for me. But for Gary, that means that perhaps he can't wild camp. I know there are other options for charging up batteries during the day, but nothing's quite as good as plugging it in at night whilst you're sleeping and charging the batteries up. So for me, travelling with the e-assist then meant I'd have to find different options other than flying back from the airport at the end of my route. It would just not have been possible to fly with the batteries. There aren't any airlines in Europe. I don't think there are any airlines anywhere that will fly with e-assist batteries. I looked at many options, such as sending the batteries back, and the costs of doing that were far too prohibitive. There's no way I could afford to send the batteries back. I could almost afford to buy new batteries. So the compromise that I eventually made for myself, having looked at many options, was to actually cut my tour short by 3 days, just so that I could hire a car at the airport in Bâle, drive across France and drop that car off at the port in Calais, and then get the ferry over on the Trike back to Dover into the UK. The plan was to then put the Trike in storage in Dover and get the train home, and then return and maybe Trike home from Dover at some point in the following days. Obviously I didn't want to Trike home from Dover straight away, because again that was cutting into the time that I could be on tour. And I wanted to spend as much time as I could in Europe actually touring on the Trike. As I said, I feel it was a bit of a compromise to lose 3 days off of the tour just to drive back across France. And if you're wondering why I had to hire a car for 3 days just to drive across France, the hire companies in Europe put a 250 kilometre per day limit on the mileage that you can do, after which they charge you an exorbitant sum per kilometre that would have cost me over £1,000 to drive just across France. So the only answer to that was to hire a car for 3 days, thus getting 250 kilometres per day, and then drive the 700 kilometres across France and drop the car off at Calais. In itself, that would have still cost me £400 to hire the car, but as I say, it's a compromise. These roads are so quiet after riding on the canal and around the Olympic Park yesterday. It's actually a pleasure just to be able to poodle round and not have to worry about avoiding people. I'm sorry if the view's not very interesting, but it's a much more pleasurable ride for me. So anyhow, I sent Gary my story in an email. I told him how I'd had to replan part of my tour because of the e-assist. But unfortunately I couldn't offer him any answers. I mean, much of it is very personal, of course, down to how strong you're feeling in your own legs, and what route you plan on taking, how much time Gary wanted to spend in the wilderness wild camping. I did advise him that of course you can charge these batteries up in other places. You can stop in a cafe at lunchtime for an hour and get a good few percentage of the battery charged up during that time. Obviously you can't fully charge it. So now, of course, having ridden every day for the last month and felt my strength in my legs increasing day by day, I know that, of course, I would have been able to do my route that I'd chosen across Europe without the e-assist quite easily. But there's always that nagging doubt, isn't there, in your mind, which is a shame. But I shall remember that for when I do complete the tour that I had planned, because I will do it at some point. But of course that might be very different for Gary. I don't know Gary personally. I don't know his level of fitness, and to be fair, I don't know what it's like climbing up 15,000 feet of mountains. But also in my reply to Gary, I did say to him that I would ask the rest of my subscribers how far they would be able to compromise their tours in order to take e-assist along. My compromise was 3 days off of my tour and a £400 expenditure on hiring a car. Of course, on different tours there might be wholly different compromises. I mean, the ultimate compromise might be that you don't go on tour at all if you don't have the e-assist, which in the case of doing 15,000 feet of climbing, for me, I think that would be a must. I already have first-hand experience of hills in Cumbria when I tried to do the sea-to-sea last year, and what it did to my knees without doing some hill training first. But to Gary, if you manage to do your tour, please let us know. Good luck to you. And I hope you get everything out of it that you plan to. I must say I envy you doing some wilderness camping in Scotland. I'm really up for doing some of that at some point. But it's a little bit far for me to travel just at the moment. And also to Ian, who told me yesterday that he was planning to do the Hebridean Way. Yes, I did look it up, Ian. My goodness, what a fantastic route that one looks. One day I shall be up there and do that one myself. For those who don't know it, the Hebridean Way cycles from the Isle of Barra in the bottom of the Outer Hebrides all the way to the top of the Outer Hebrides, and for the life of me I can't remember the name of the point at the top, but there's a lighthouse right at the top where the Hebridean Way ends. What a fantastic route. One day. Anyway, that's it from me for today, everyone. Just a short one. But I do have a trike along that I'm going to attempt to edit this afternoon on top of this, so hopefully you won't miss a long vlog today too much. But as I said right at the beginning, I'm trying to avoid the canals and parks today because they're just too busy. Right, I'll be back with another one tomorrow. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you soon. Thanks everyone. Ta-da.